The truth behind the rumor that Kurdish fighters crossed the border to attack Iran, Iran's Hisa 110 will tear through the sky at a speed of 510 kilometers per hour. Iran slows its missile launch pace. What is happening behind the scenes? The U.S. struggles to counter Iran's missiles, exhausting every resource. Mr. Trump reveals a plan for regime change in Iran. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the World News Update. Today's program will bring you a comprehensive overview of international events over the past 24 hours, from political and diplomatic issues, conflicts, technological achievements to human interest stories. Now please join us as we review the latest notable developments. The truth behind the rumor that Kurdish gunmen crossed the border to attack Iran. Recently, local authorities in western Iran firmly rejected claims that Kurdish armed groups had crossed into the country from the Kurdistan region of Iraq, affirming that the border remains fully under control. The statement came after several days of reports in U.S. media suggesting that Washington was arming Kurdish forces as a potential infantry force. Recently, a U.S. official told Fox News that thousands of Iraqi Kurdish fighters were believed to have launched an attack inside Iran. Mohammed Safi, an official of Qasr-e-Shirin district on the Iran-Iraq border, denied the reports of infiltration. The official previously told local media that there had been no reports of infiltration or illegal movement by armed or criminal groups. He stated that rumors about counter-revolutionary elements infiltrating the Islamic Republic of Iran were completely false and intended only to create anxiety among the population. Meanwhile, Kurdish groups based in Iraq's Kurdistan Autonomous Region acknowledged deploying forces near the border, but insisted they had not crossed it. Hannah Hussein, a representative of the Kurdistan Freedom Party (PAK), told the BBC that 6 Kurdish opposition groups were coordinating plans but were still waiting for support from the United States. She said Kurdish fighters could not move unless the airspace above had been cleared, adding that acting immediately would be suicidal. A senior leader of the Kurdistan Democratic Party of Iran, KDPI, told the BBC he believed Kurds would soon fight in Iran but declined to provide a specific timeline. Iran's Hisa 110 superweapon will tear through the sky at 510 kilometers per hour. According to information from international military analysis sources, Iran has begun deploying the Hesa 110 one-way attack drone. This is a new loitering munition developed by Iran's defense industry. This marks the first time Iran has introduced a new weapon designed to fly faster and be harder to intercept than the Shahed 136 series. Loitering drones such as the Shahed 136 have already been used in several conflicts and have become one of Tehran's most notable weapons. The Hesa 110 UAV has been introduced as Iran continues expanding its drone arsenal, a sector in which the country has invested heavily for many years. According to released images and data, the Hesa 110 features a compact design with a triangular fuselage and short wings that reduce radar cross-section. This weapon is harder to detect on radar compared with larger drones. The most important difference lies in its engine. Unlike the Shahed 136 loitering drone, which uses a piston propeller engine, the new model uses a small jet engine. This design allows the aircraft to reach a maximum speed of about 510 kilometers per hour, significantly faster than the Shahed 136. The large speed difference makes the Hisa 110 harder to intercept, giving air defense systems less reaction time after detecting the target. After being launched from a ground launcher or a launch vehicle, the drone flies along a pre-programmed route using an inertial navigation system combined with satellite positioning. When approaching the target, the drone dives and detonates its warhead. Military experts believe the Hisa 110 is designed to conduct rapid tactical strikes against critical targets such as early warning radars, air defense sites, ammunition depots, or command centers. U.S. air defense under pressure countering Iranian missiles stretch to the limit. Recent developments show that low cost is the foundation enabling Iranian drones to carry out swarm-style attacks, helping neutralize expensive air defense systems protecting U.S. and allied assets in the Gulf. The military campaign against Iran does not appear to be unfolding according to the scenario planned by Washington and Tel Aviv, as Tehran is placing considerable pressure on the air defense systems of the U.S., Israel, and their allies in the Middle East. Predictions by some Western experts that the anti-Iran coalition might only have enough air defense missiles for about another week could become reality. Reports that Gulf countries supporting the U.S. and Israel are rapidly running low on air defense missiles have been partially confirmed. Meanwhile, Iran has accumulated a large missile stockpile and is employing a strategy of weakening its opponent by launching massive numbers of suicide drones and inexpensive missiles at military bases and airports, forcing the enemy to expend extremely costly interceptor missiles. There are reports that older generation air defense missiles have been put into use by the United States because newer missiles have run out or have not yet been replenished. U.S. forces stationed in Qatar appear to have begun using the Patriot PAC-2 missile version to counter Iranian attacks. Images of missile debris fired from a Patriot system deployed in Qatar have appeared online, believed to be components of PAC-2 missiles produced around the year 2000. If the published images are accurate, this may indicate a decline in the stockpile of the more modern PAC-3 missiles. Trump reveals a plan for regime change in Iran. In a move that shook international mediation efforts, U.S. President Donald Trump stated that there would be no agreement with Iran except unconditional surrender. The U.S. leader also pledged that if Iran accepted surrender, Washington, along with many allies and partners, would help pull Iran back from the brink of destruction, turning the country into one that is economically stronger, better, and more powerful than ever before. This suggests the White House may be preparing for a prolonged conflict, contrary to previous statements by U.S. officials that regime change was not the objective. He also dismissed this possibility of Mojtaba Khamenei, son of Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, succeeding to power, saying such a development would not change the current policies of Iran's government. Trump said, "We want to go in and clean everything up. We don't want someone who will rebuild it again in 10 years. In addition, President Trump expressed hope for a new leader in Iran who would take a stance friendly toward the United States as well as Israel, while also affirming that he does not care whether the Islamic Republic of Iran becomes a democracy or not. President Trump told CNN that Iran's leadership had been neutralized and that he is looking for a new leader for the country, someone who would treat the United States and Israel well, even if that leader were religious and Iran did not become a democratic state. Mr. Trump said in a brief phone interview with CNN in which many issues were discussed that Iran is no longer the country it was a week ago. A week ago, they were still very strong, but now they have truly been stripped of their power. The U.S. leader expressed confidence that selecting a new leader for Iran would be very easy, and he said that he needs to participate in that process. At the same time, he compared this task to Venezuela, where the United States arrested President Nicolas Maduro earlier this year and brought him to New York for trial. President Trump also said that he would be willing to accept a religious leader in Iran. Iran reduces the pace of missile launches while the opposing side begins to raise questions. According to CNN, in a closed meeting, U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff Dan Kane acknowledged that drones are causing far greater problems than previously predicted, and that U.S. air defense systems cannot intercept all UAVs launched by Iran. These officials noted that unlike ballistic missiles, drones often fly slowly and operate at low altitude, which helps them evade air defense systems. CNN reported that the U.S. military has tried to reassure concerns about this issue, while emphasizing that U.S. allies in the Gulf are strengthening their stockpiles of weapons capable of intercepting UAVs. The sixth day of the war unfolded according to a familiar scenario. U.S. and Israeli forces continued attacking targets in Iran, while Tehran and groups affiliated with it responded with strikes on bases, ports, and infrastructure belonging to Washington's allies. Admiral Brad Cooper, commander of the U.S. Central Command CENTCOM, confirmed that over the past 24 hours, Iranian ballistic missile attacks have decreased by 90% and UAV attacks by 83%. Meanwhile, U.S. attacks targeting Iran's navy have intensified. He added that so far the United States has sunk more than 30 Iranian warships. It can be seen that the intensity of Iran's retaliatory missile strikes in recent days has been gradually decreasing. The reason may be that many launchers have been destroyed or Iran is running out of missiles or both. Another line of opinion suggests that this Middle Eastern country is conserving missile ammunition for a prolonged conflict. Although the number of launches has decreased, Iranian missiles are still reportedly continuously causing difficulties for the air defenses of Israel, the United States, and regional allies. Several U.S. bases in the Middle East have been hit. Meanwhile, Iran is using cheap UAV drones to carry out precise strikes throughout the Middle East. At the same time, the U.S. and its allies possess air defense systems capable of intercepting most of Iran's ballistic missiles and UAVs. However, these are sophisticated and very expensive pieces of equipment. Since the U.S. and Israel launched their offensive campaign on June 28th, Iran has launched more than 2,000 suicide UAVs, some of which have hit targets despite being intercepted by air defense systems worth billions of U.S. dollars. This is not only an emerging issue in the Middle East, but also a global challenge as attack UAVs become increasingly cheap while defense costs continue to rise, creating financial burdens that may be difficult to sustain in the long term. Global Hotspot, July 6th. Israel launches Phase 2, continuing to eliminate Iranian leaders with more brutal attacks. Recently, the Chief of Staff of the Israeli military, Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir, said that Israel is moving to the next phase of the war with Iran after conducting 2,500 airstrikes using more than 6,000 types of weapons. He said the current military campaign is a historic operation beginning with a surprise attack phase in which about 80% of Iran's air defense systems and 60% of its ballistic missile launchers were destroyed. Speaking in a video statement, Zamir said, "At this stage, we will continue to further weaken Iran's government and its military capabilities." There are still other surprises that I cannot yet disclose. Earlier sources also said Israel's war in Iran is entering its second phase. The second phase will include ballistic missile storage facilities and related equipment. One source said that during this phase, Israel aims to neutralize Iran's ability to conduct air attacks against Israel before the conflict ends. At the same time, the campaign will continue to focus on eliminating Iran's leadership. Estimates of Iran's missile arsenal before the conflict vary widely from about 2,500 missiles, according to Israeli assessments, to around 6,000, according to some other analysts. The scale of the remaining missile stockpile could play a decisive role in the course of the war. Douglas Barry, an expert at the UK-based International Institute for Strategic Studies (IISS), assessed that Iran still possesses some ground attack cruise missiles, precision-guided weapons that fly low to avoid radar detection. Tehran continues to carry out missile attacks against Israel and various locations across the region. Israeli and U.S. officials say the number of ballistic missile and drone launches from Iran has decreased. According to them, this may partly be due to U.S. and Israeli airstrikes targeting Iranian launchers and related military infrastructure. It may also reflect Tehran's efforts to preserve its missile stockpile while preparing for a prolonged war of attrition. In related developments, Admiral Brad Cooper, commander of the U.S. Central Command, said U.S. attacks on Iran's navy have intensified. Cooper also said the U.S. has struck 200 targets deep inside Iranian territory within 72 hours, dropping dozens of bombs on Iranian ballistic missile launchers and attacking forces equivalent to Iran's Space Command. He added that the U.S. has sunk more than 30 Iranian warships. The CENTCOM commander affirmed that the United States is fighting to win, but noted that the war will take time. Admiral Cooper stated that the United States is deploying new forces in the war with Iran. He explained that the U.S. is not only using expensive weapons to intercept cheap UAVs. He added, "If I look back a few years ago, people used to say we were shooting down a $50,000 drone with a $2 million missile. Today we spend a lot of time shooting down $100,000 drones with $10,000 weapons." In a recent post on the social media platform XRT News Agency reported that the United States carried out a large-scale precision strike on Iran's Imam Ali military base. A video posted by RT shows multiple columns of smoke rising and covering a large area. However, the damage caused by the U.S. attack has not yet been updated. Meanwhile, explosions have continued to shake Tehran, leaving many residents unsure whether to leave or stay. One resident told CNN bombings are happening everywhere, north, south, east, west. It seems they are targeting anything and everything. The man and his wife fled Tehran, and he described the instability of living under constant attacks. You never know what the target is or who it is, he said. Meanwhile, General Qomar Haidari, deputy commander of Iran's Khatam al-Anbiya Central Headquarters, also expressed a hardline stance as the war with the U.S. and Israel entered its sixth day. He affirmed that Iran will not abandon the war until its objectives are achieved and heavy blows are delivered to the United States. General Haidari said, "For us, how many days this war lasts does not matter. We have experienced an 8-year war before, and we will only end this war when we have achieved our goal of making the enemy regret and despair. The United States and Israel are intensifying missile strikes on key targets in Iran, while Tehran is responding by attacking a series of U.S. military facilities and energy infrastructure across 9 Middle Eastern countries. The conflict has so far killed about 1,100 people on all sides. Israel bombs Lebanon. Iran retaliates by launching 1-ton warhead missiles at Tel Aviv. The Lebanese government recently said that Israeli airstrikes in the south of the country over the past 3 days have killed 123 people and wounded 683 others. On the afternoon of July 6th, Tel Aviv authorities continued bombing the southern suburbs of Beirut, reportedly targeting Hezbollah facilities. Israel also issued warnings urging Lebanese civilians in the area to leave immediately. Meanwhile, CNN reported on July 6th that Iran had announced it carried out a combined drone and missile attack on Israel, particularly targeting central Tel Aviv. According to AFP reporters at the scene, several loud explosions were heard almost simultaneously in Tel Aviv. The Israeli military said it had detected missiles carrying cluster warheads launched from Iran. In a statement, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps (IRGC) said it launched ballistic missiles carrying 1-ton explosive warheads at key Israeli targets, including central Tel Aviv Ben Gurion Airport and the base of Israel's 27th Air Squadron located at the airport. Iran's state television reported that its military had also conducted UAV drone strikes against targets in Tel Aviv and the Ramat David base in northern Israel. In Tehran, many Iranian media outlets, including state television, reported that another wave of missiles had been launched from Iran toward Israel in the latest attack. Israel's emergency response forces said there were no initial reports of casualties across the country. 2 Iranian boys' schools hit by airstrike scenes of devastation. 2 boys' schools in the town of Parand, southwest of Iran's capital Tehran, were reportedly damaged after the recent airstrike. Images published by the Tasnim news agency show widespread destruction on the school grounds. Glass windows in many classrooms were blown out by the blast pressure, while large cracks appeared in classroom walls. Some sections of walls and ceilings also collapsed, leaving chaotic scenes inside the school buildings. The New York Times verified images outside the 2 schools and confirmed that a large column of smoke rose from the exact area after the attack. There has been no immediate information about deaths or injuries at the schools. The incident occurred about a week after a girls' school in Manab was hit, killing at least 175 people, according to Iranian health authorities. Regarding the incident, Iran's ambassador to Russia, Qasem Jalali, stated that Israeli soldiers believed to be responsible for the missile attack on elementary schools in Minab and Lamerd, which killed 165 schoolgirls, will face criminal responsibility at the international level. Speaking to the Russian news agency, TASS, Mr. Jalali emphasized that shelling residential areas, especially educational facilities, constitutes a clear violation of international humanitarian law. He cited the 4th Geneva Convention and additional protocol, 1, arguing that failing to distinguish between military and civilian targets constitutes a war crime and entails international criminal responsibility for both those who issue the orders and those who directly carry them out. Earlier, Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi called the attack on the girls' school in Minab a massacre and a war crime, and declared that Tehran has the right to self-defense under international law. Iran launches a barrage of missiles at Israel and several U.S. bases. The Associated Press, AP, recently reported that Iran carried out a new missile strike targeting Israel and U.S. military bases in the Middle East. This move came shortly after a U.S. Navy submarine fired torpedoes and sank the Iranian destroyer Iris Dana off the coast of Sri Lanka. In response, Tehran threatened to destroy key military and economic infrastructure across the region. In Israel, air raid sirens continuously sounded in Tel Aviv and Jerusalem as the military announced that multiple missiles were heading toward Israeli territory. At the same time, Iranian state television confirmed that additional strikes had directly targeted bases where U.S. troops are stationed. Notably, Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps (IRGC) deployed 2 Soviet-era Su-24 tactical bombers toward Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar, where about 10,000 U.S. troops are usually stationed, as well as the Ras Laffan natural gas processing facility, a pillar of Qatar's economy. One source said the 2 Iranian aircraft were only 2 minutes away from their targets. Another source stated that the aircraft were carrying bombs and guided weapons. Explosion near Oman raises maritime security concerns. In the Persian Gulf, according to the UK Maritime Trade Operations UKMTO, a large explosion occurred recently near the coast of Oman, damaging an oil tanker and raising concerns about maritime security in the Strait of Hormuz. The Independent reported that the tanker was flying a U.S. flag, and Iranian forces confirmed that they had struck the vessel. Earlier attacks since the conflict began had also occurred in the Gulf of Oman and the Strait of Hormuz. Following threats to completely destroy infrastructure belonging to the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, neighboring countries are now on high alert. Iran releases shocking statistics on civilian damage. The head of the Iranian Red Crescent Society, IRCS Pir Hossein Kolavand, said that attacks by the United States and Israel have so far damaged 3,090 homes and 528 commercial and service centers nationwide. 14 medical and pharmaceutical facilities and 9 IRCS facilities were also damaged, with 5 IRCS staff members injured. According to the IRCS, the capital Tehran suffered the most severe damage, with most of the targets located in densely populated areas. The Tehran Bazar Mehrabad Airport and Azadi Stadium were among the damaged locations. In addition to several hospitals, Tehran, a city of 10 million people with very high population density, has government and military headquarters often located close to commercial and residential districts. This reality leaves civilians vulnerable as the United States and Israel expand their target list to include government offices, broadcasting stations, and Iranian police security headquarters. Satellite images taken in the early days of the conflict previously showed damage at several Iranian locations, including the Kojir UAV facility, the residence complex of Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the Natanz nuclear complex, the radar system at Zahedan Air Base. Meanwhile, the U.S. Central Command CENTCOM stated that more than 2,000 targets had been struck in Iran. The Israel Defense Forces IDF declared that their aircraft had dropped over 4,000 bombs and guided missiles on Iran since the 28th. However, only a few hours after the United States launched Operation Epic Fury against Iran, Tehran's forces carried out retaliatory attacks on U.S. military bases in the Middle East, killing several American soldiers and destroying billions of dollars worth of equipment. Iran vows retaliation. The head of Iran's Supreme National Security Council, Ali Larijani, declared that the United States and Israel would pay the price. Larijani said that the brave soldiers and the great nation of Iran will deliver an unforgettable lesson to those who oppress the international order and deserve to be sent to hell. Donald Trump comments on possible ground deployment to Iran. U.S. President Donald Trump said Washington is currently considering deploying ground troops to Iran. In a phone interview with NBC, Trump said, "It's a waste of time. They've lost everything. They've lost their navy. They've lost everything they could lose." The U.S. leader also dismissed warnings from Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi that deploying foreign troops into Iran would lead to disaster for invading forces, calling the statement meaningless. At a recent sporting event at the White House, he again called on all members of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the army and the police, to lay down their weapons. He stated that if they do so, they will be safe with full immunity, otherwise they will face certain death. Trump also called on Iran to reduce its role on the international stage, adding, "We also call on Iranian diplomats around the world to seek asylum and help us shape a new and better Iran with great potential." Trump said that military operations against Iran had caused severe damage to the country's military capabilities. According to him, about 58% of Iran's missile launchers have been neutralized in operations conducted jointly by the United States and Israel. He added that Iran will take many years to recover from these losses. Mysterious ballistic missile reportedly used in assassination attempt. Israel is believed to have used a little-known ballistic missile capable of flying beyond Earth's atmosphere in the surprise attack targeting Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. The missile, called Blue Sparrow, was developed by Israel and is considered one of the weapons capable of penetrating enemy air defense systems, thanks to its unique flight trajectory and high speed. According to military experts, the choice of this weapon reflects a tactical approach aimed at bypassing air defense layers and striking high-value strategic targets within a very short time. The Blue Sparrow is an air-launched missile developed by Israel with a range of about 2,000 kilometers. After launch, the missile follows a trajectory similar to that of a ballistic missile, rapidly accelerating and rising toward the edge of space before re-entering the atmosphere and descending toward its target at high speed. Gray cylindrical debris believed to belong to a Blue Sparrow missile has reportedly been discovered in western Iraq along a flight path believed to be heading toward Iran. This suggests that the missile may have flown across the Middle East before approaching its target in Tehran. Blue Sparrow is part of a family of target missiles developed by Israel alongside Black Sparrow and Silver Sparrow. Initially, these systems were designed to simulate Scud-type ballistic missiles for testing Israel's missile defense systems. The missile is approximately 6.5 meters long, weighs nearly 1.9 tons, and was originally used as a target vehicle in missile defense tests. Middle East conflict intensifies as countries evacuate citizens. As the conflict in the Middle East continues to escalate and disrupt air travel and regional security, more countries are activating emergency measures to evacuate their citizens from dangerous areas. Recently, South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Tae-yul announced that the government is preparing plans to deploy aircraft to bring home citizens stranded in the Middle East. According to South Korea's foreign ministry, around 21,000 South Korean citizens are currently living or staying in more than 10 Middle Eastern countries, including over 4,000 short-term residents such as tourists. At the same time, the South Korean National Police Agency announced it will dispatch 6 members of the government's interagency rapid response team to the Middle East. 3 will be sent to Oman and 3 to Dubai to assist South Korean citizens on site, including with administrative procedures and emergency departures. Canadian Foreign Minister Anita Anand said the government is working to prepare multiple support options for citizens, including the possibility of organizing charter flights or arranging seats on flights operated by Canada and allied countries. According to statistics, more than 106,000 Canadian citizens and permanent residents are living in the Middle East, spread across more than 10 countries. Among those who may require assistance to leave, about 85% are concentrated in 5 countries: the United Arab Emirates, UAE, Qatar, Lebanon, Israel, and Iran. In the United Arab Emirates alone, where airspace is only partially open, more than 1,100 Canadians are seeking ways to leave the region. Meanwhile, Qatar has completely closed its airspace, forcing some passengers to travel by bus to Saudi Arabia in order to catch commercial flights. Canada's Ministry of Foreign Affairs has also deployed additional consular staff to border areas surrounding Iran, such as Turkey, Turkmenistan, Armenia, Iraq, and Azerbaijan, to assist citizens if they can reach border crossings. Sri Lankan President Anura Kumara Dissanayake previously announced that the country had evacuated 208 sailors from an Iranian naval vessel that suffered a technical malfunction and brought them safely ashore. The Sri Lankan Navy has also taken control of the vessel and plans to bring it to the port of Trincomalee in the country's northeast to ensure safety amid concerns the ship could become a target of attack. The move came just one day after an Iranian frigate was sunk at sea in an attack that killed dozens of sailors. Iran condemned the incident and warned the United States over the action. Iranian weapons shake the U.S.-Israel shield. Trump issues new orders. An analysis by the American military journal Military Watch magazine states that current air defense systems are almost incapable of effectively intercepting Iran's Fateh-2 hypersonic missile. According to the assessment, the advantage of this weapon lies in its extremely high speed and its complex maneuverability throughout its flight trajectory, making tracking and interception particularly difficult. According to Military Watch's analysis, the Fateh-2 has an estimated range of about 1,400 kilometers. It is also considered the only missile in Iran's arsenal believed to integrate a hypersonic glide vehicle, HGV. Hypersonic glide vehicles are capable of flexibly changing direction and altitude during flight. This feature makes it very difficult for radar warning systems and interceptor missiles to accurately predict the target's approach path when combined with hypersonic speed. This type of weapon is considered to be nearly beyond the interception capability of current air defense systems. Yuval Steinitz, Vice President of Rafael Advanced Defense Systems, the developer of Israel's leading missile defense systems, has proposed a regional defense model in which multiple interceptor missiles protect designated airspace zones and attack incoming threats when they enter those zones, instead of pursuing individual targets. However, Israel has not yet shown signs that it can deploy this approach. Meanwhile, U.S. military officials have also warned that current defense systems are under significant pressure from Iranian drone and missile attacks. Officials acknowledge that although the U.S. military can shoot down most drones, it cannot intercept all of them. Therefore, Washington is focusing on destroying Iran's drone and missile launch platforms as quickly as possible to reduce pressure on the defense system. In that context, analysts believe Iran's stockpile of Fatah-2 missiles could continue to penetrate existing defense networks. This forces the United States and Israel to increase pressure to gain air superiority over Iranian airspace in order to destroy missile launch platforms before they can be fired. In another related development, Admiral Brad Cooper, who is currently commanding U.S. forces in the Middle East as head of the U.S. Central Command CENTCOM, stated that Iran's ballistic missile attacks have decreased by 90% since the first day of the war between the United States, Israel, and Iran. In addition, Iranian drone attacks have also decreased by 83%. The statement raises questions about whether Iran has finally run out of ballistic missiles or is changing its attack tactics. Admiral Cooper also revealed that U.S. President Donald Trump has assigned the military a new mission to flatten or completely destroy Iran's ballistic missile industrial production base. Cooper said, "We are not only striking what they currently have, but also destroying their ability to rebuild in the future." Admiral Cooper emphasized that as the campaign continues, the United States will systematically dismantle Iran's long-term missile production capabilities, and this process is currently being actively implemented. He also affirmed, "We are fighting to win. With the combined combat power of the United States and Israel, we will continue to seriously weaken Iran's ability to project power beyond its borders." As military tensions in the Middle East have escalated in recent weeks, one detail in the way Iran conducts its missile attacks has drawn particular attention from the international military community. Not only launching missiles from traditional mobile launchers, Iran has also claimed to deploy weapons from underground missile cities deep beneath the ground. These base systems have been secretly constructed over many years. Videos and images released by the Aerospace Force of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps (YRGC) show massive tunnels deep underground where large numbers of ballistic missiles are kept in a combat-ready state. From launch shafts or reinforced tunnel entrances, missiles can be fired directly from underground within minutes after receiving orders. According to many analysts, the existence of these facilities helps explain why Iran can still maintain missile attacks, even when surface bases are closely monitored by satellites and reconnaissance aircraft. One aspect that has attracted experts' attention is the way Iran deploys launch systems in these missile cities. Instead of relying entirely on transporter erector launcher (TEL) vehicles, many missiles are placed in launch shafts or vertical launch silos located deep inside tunnels. When fired, the tunnel doors or silo covers open and the missiles are launched directly into the sky. This method shortens preparation time and reduces the risk of detection before launch. Iran has repeatedly stated that it is the first country in the world to deploy large-scale missile launch capability from underground missile cities where weapons are equipped, maintained, and launched within the same underground system. According to defense research data, many of these bases are built as deep as about 500 meters underground, enough to protect them from most conventional airstrikes. Thanks to being stored in underground bunkers, these missiles can remain combat-ready for long periods. When necessary, they can be launched from multiple locations within the same base, making it extremely difficult to identify and destroy the entire system. According to experts, this allows Iran to maintain retaliation capability even in the event of a preemptive strike, because opponents can hardly know the exact location of all launch sites. Israel unexpectedly admits mistakes in the ongoing conflict. A senior Israeli official acknowledged that the country had underestimated Hezbollah's level of involvement while facing simultaneous attacks from Iran and Hezbollah forces in Lebanon. Speaking in an interview with Channel 13 News, the official said Israel's strategic planners had not anticipated the intensity of Hezbollah's response after the group entered the fighting. The official said, "We made a mistake about Hezbollah. We did not expect them to fire so intensely." The Israeli official added that the current war could last longer than the 12-day conflict that took place in June last year. Israel is currently facing rocket launches from Lebanon along with missile and drone attacks from Iran, creating pressure on multiple fronts. Earlier, the Hezbollah movement claimed it had attacked a naval base in northern Israel. This was the group's 12th attack of the day as Israel continued strikes on Lebanon, including the southern suburbs of the capital Beirut. In a separate interview with Fox News a few days ago, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu defended the war with Iran, describing it as necessary to counter what he called a long-term threat posed by Tehran. Netanyahu argued that Iran's ballistic missile program and nuclear program would soon become immune to attacks if there were no campaign called Operation Rising Lion. Action must be taken, and you need a decisive president like Donald Trump to carry out that action. President Zelensky plans to deploy troops in the Middle East. Russia suddenly speaks about supplying weapons to Iran. President Volodymyr Zelensky said that groups of Ukrainian troops and partners in the Middle East are coordinating so that Ukrainian soldiers can work on site. Specifically, after a meeting with the heads of Ukrainian agencies, Zelensky said that in the past few days, Iran has used more than 800 missiles of various types and more than 1,400 drones in attacks. Ukraine can help protect lives and stabilize the situation. Partners have proposed this issue. I have instructed that support options be presented to the countries involved and that assistance be provided in a way that does not weaken our own defense capability in Ukraine. Zelensky affirmed that the Ukrainian military has the necessary capabilities. He said Ukrainian specialists will work on site and groups have begun reaching agreements on this matter. He also declared that we are ready to support substantive efforts to stabilize the situation as well as reconstruction, including ensuring safe maritime navigation in the region. Meanwhile, on the opposite side, when asked whether Russia plans to provide any assistance to Iran, especially by supplying weapons beyond political support, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov emphasized that at the moment there has been no request from Iran. Our consistent position is widely known and that position remains unchanged. Also speaking to the press, Peskov said that military actions in the Middle East and their impact on the international oil environment will not lead to fluctuations in fuel prices in Russia. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov noted that in this case, the international environment related to the conflict in Iran cannot and should not be a reason for any fluctuations in our fuel prices. Of course, the government is continuously monitoring the situation. Peskov added that the government and the Federal Anti-Monopoly Service (FAS) are monitoring fuel prices in Russia. It is known that last year Iran signed a 20-year strategic partnership agreement with Russia. Russia is currently building 2 new nuclear plant complexes in Bushehr, where Iran's only nuclear power plant is located, and Iran has supplied Russia with Shahed drones for use in the military campaign in Ukraine. Also from the Russian side, Secretary of the Russian Security Council Sergei Shoigu told reporters that the attacks on Iran are an unprecedented disregard for international law. Shoigu said, "We are facing an unprecedented disregard for international law established after the First and Second World Wars." The ambassadors of Iran and Israel held separate press conferences in Seoul, the capital of South Korea, making sharp accusations against each other as the conflict between the two countries continues to escalate in the Middle East. Speaking through an interpreter, Iran's ambassador to South Korea, Saeed Kuzichi, called on Seoul, a key U.S. ally, to speak out more strongly to demand an end to what he called illegal acts of aggression by the United States and Israel carried out while nuclear negotiations were still ongoing. He warned that many coffins would return to the United States if Washington decided to deploy ground forces. At the same time, he said attacks by Iran on Gulf countries hosting U.S. military bases would be unavoidable. On the other hand, Israel's ambassador to Seoul, Rafael Harpaz, affirmed that the joint U.S.-Israel military operations aim to destroy Iran's nuclear development facilities and ballistic missile launch sites, while also helping free the Iranian people from oppression. South Korea has so far supported U.S.-led diplomatic efforts to curb Iran's nuclear ambitions, but has not publicly endorsed U.S.-Israel attacks, instead calling for an early restoration of dialogue. The United States and Israel launched the war against Iran on the 28th with the reason of eliminating Tehran's nuclear and missile threats. According to figures recently released by the Iranian government, U.S. and Israeli attacks on Iran have killed 1,045 people, nearly equal to the total casualties in Israel's raid campaign on Iran during the 12-day war in June 2025, when 1,060 people died. A chilling prophecy accurately predicting the entire course of the Iran-Israel conflict. A Brazilian prophet dubbed the New Nostradamus has issued a series of chilling predictions for 2026, including a worrying warning said to occur as early as this March. And the prediction about the Iran-Israel war has even come true. The Mirror reported. According to the Mirror article, psychic Athos Salome, 39, believes the world may face major upheavals this year, including events capable of shaking the globe. The title New Nostradamus is used to compare him with Nostradamus, the famous 16th century prophet who left many predictions about the future believed to be accurate. As the world goes through a period of deep political and geopolitical instability, Brazilian psychic Salome had also predicted escalating tensions between Iran and Israel, and many recent developments seem to have occurred earlier than he expected. Previously in his forecast, the psychic said Iran's uranium enrichment program, together with Israel preparing military options, could push the Middle East into a new period of instability, especially in the second quarter of 2026. That worrying prediction became accurate when Iran became involved in a war with Israel and the United States, while most of the Middle East suffered devastating consequences. In an interview with Romanian television station Pro TV in February 2023, Salome predicted that a disaster would occur between Israel and Iran. Accordingly, he said that from July to October 2025, there would be a high risk of an Israeli attack on Iran's nuclear facilities in Natanz or Fordow. He also predicted that Iran would respond by blocking the Strait of Hormuz, affecting 30% of the world's oil supply and causing an energy crisis. In addition, Salome said Israel would not act alone. The United States, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates, UAE, have built an unofficial alliance to protect their interests in the Gulf and contain Iran's influence. Salome predicted that the focus would be strategy, oil trade routes, and military deterrence. The prophet affirmed that Israel plans to destroy key Iranian infrastructure, including energy networks, telecommunications, and command centers, in order to restrain the regime's logistical capabilities. He also noted that Iran would accelerate the production of nuclear warheads targeting U.S. bases in the Gulf, including Oman, Qatar, and Bahrain. As all eyes focus on the conflict between Iran and Israel, the most serious military escalation in the Middle East since the 1991 Gulf War, prophet Salome reminds us that he had correctly predicted the confrontation. India's Ministry of External Affairs recently rejected information circulating on social media claiming that the U.S. Navy had used Indian ports to conduct military operations against Iran. In a statement posted on social media platform X, India's Ministry of External Affairs said claims appearing on a U.S.-based television channel that Indian ports were being used by the U.S. Navy in the conflict with Iran are completely baseless. The agency also warned the public not to spread unfounded and fabricated information that could mislead people about New Delhi's stance. These allegations stem from remarks by retired U.S. Army Colonel Douglas McGregor in an interview on the One America News Network. He said many U.S. port facilities in the Middle East had been destroyed as the fighting escalated, forcing the U.S. Navy to rely on Indian ports, which he described as not ideal. New Delhi's move comes as the conflict in West Asia continues to escalate and shows signs of spreading further. U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has confirmed information about a U.S. submarine sinking an Iranian warship in international waters off Sri Lanka. According to initial sources, a U.S. submarine fired torpedoes at the Iranian destroyer Iris Dena while the ship was returning home after a mission in India. According to Sri Lankan authorities, the attack killed at least 87 people and left dozens missing. The event marks a new escalation in U.S.-Iran tensions and raises concerns that the conflict in the Middle East could spread into the Indian Ocean, a region crucial to global trade and energy security. In response to these dangerous developments, India continues to emphasize its position, calling on all parties to exercise restraint, avoid actions that escalate tensions, and prioritize resolving disputes through dialogue and diplomatic measures to maintain regional peace and stability. Suspicions about Chinese shipments and military equipment to Iran. According to the website Middle East Eye, China sent additional weapons to Tehran before the outbreak of hostilities between Iran, Israel, and the United States. Information about these weapons shipments was revealed by 3 informed officials. Among the weapons delivered to Iran were cruise missiles, unmanned aerial vehicles, various offensive weapons, and air defense systems. China has continuously supplied air defense equipment to Iran since last summer. A Middle Eastern intelligence official noted that the Chinese systems currently possessed by Iran include the HQ-16 and HQ-17AE. According to Indonesia's Tempo, supplying attack drones may also be a way for Beijing to support Iran's offensive capabilities while it considers selling more advanced missile systems. This week, reports emerged that China is discussing with Iran the possible supply of CM-302 anti-ship cruise missiles. This type of missile can be launched from both warships and land-based launchers with a range of about 290 kilometers. The CM-302 missile flies at supersonic speed and is designed to fly at low altitude to evade warship defense systems. Weapons experts believe that if deployed, this missile would significantly enhance Iran's maritime strike capability and create a direct threat to U.S. naval forces operating in the Middle East. In addition, regional intelligence sources say the two countries are also discussing the possibility of Iran purchasing the DF-17 hypersonic missile manufactured by China. Although Iran's ballistic missiles have a comparable range, the superior maneuverability of the DF-17 allows it to evade air defense systems much more effectively. The attacks by the United States and Israel on Iran have depleted Tehran's missile stockpile. However, there are no signs that Iran can rely on China to strengthen its defenses. So far, there is no concrete evidence that Chinese weapons have been deployed in the hostilities between Iran and the United States and Israel. After the United States and Israel attacked Iran last weekend, China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs denied reports that Beijing was preparing to equip Iran with supersonic anti-ship missiles. In addition, China has urged the United States and Israel to cease military actions against Iran. The United Nations opens an independent investigation into the conflict between Israel, the United States, and Iran recently in Geneva. The United Nations Independent International Fact-Finding Mission on Iran condemned the attacks carried out by Israel and the United States against Iranian territory, as well as Tehran's subsequent retaliatory strikes in the region. The body stated that these military actions contradict the United Nations Charter, which prohibits the use of force against the territorial integrity or political independence of any state. The investigative mission also expressed shock over the attack on a girls' school in the city of Minab in southern Iran. According to the announcement, most of the victims appeared to be female students between the ages of 7 and 12. The UN statement also emphasized that the killing of dozens of Iranian officials, including Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei in U.S., and Israeli airstrikes is not an acceptable means of delivering justice under international law. The UN investigation further noted that the Iranian population is currently trapped in the midst of a large-scale military campaign that could last for several weeks. Meanwhile, on the ground, airstrikes targeting Iran continue with increasing intensity. The Pentagon stated that the United States is preparing for a scenario in which the conflict with Iran could last at least 100 days and potentially extend to September 2026, as Washington increases military and intelligence support for operations related to the expanding war in the Middle East. According to Politico, the U.S. Central Command CENTCOM has requested the Pentagon to deploy additional military intelligence officers to its headquarters in Tampa, Florida, to support Iran-related operations for at least 100 days, with the possibility of extending until September. This is considered the first request by the U.S. administration to add dedicated intelligence personnel for the Iran-related campaign, indicating that Washington is preparing for the possibility of a military operation lasting far longer than the 4-week timeline previously mentioned by President Donald Trump. According to reports, the Pentagon has begun allocating budget and resources for a long-term campaign as fighting between Israel, Iran, and Tehran's allied forces spreads across multiple fronts in the region. U.S. defense officials are concerned that the current conflict could develop into a prolonged regional war rather than a short-term military campaign. In recent times, the United States has coordinated with Israel to carry out large-scale attacks against Iranian security targets, including military facilities and strategic infrastructure. Religion and the message behind the Israel-Iran conflict. According to Syria's Enab Baladi, the use of religious symbols and language is playing an important role in how the parties construct narratives about the escalating conflict between Israel and Iran, influencing public opinion and complicating prospects for resolving the crisis. The newspaper noted that such names are not accidental but are associated with religious imagery and memories deeply rooted in Israel's history and identity, thereby conveying a message of a power that is awakening and ready to go beyond its borders to strike evil, according to Tel Aviv's interpretation. Experts believe that choosing religiously symbolic names places military operations within a broader historical and spiritual context, transforming the confrontation from merely a military action into what is presented as a struggle for survival. According to Enab Baladi, this approach also helps mobilize domestic public opinion and strengthen the sense of national unity. The article states that on the U.S. side, the operation reportedly named Wrath of Justice also carries strong symbolic overtones. Militarily, the strikes reportedly targeted several strategic Iranian cities, such as Tehran, Qom, and Isfahan, aiming at sensitive infrastructure, as well as certain senior military and political officials. According to Enab Baladi, this move marks a new phase in the long-standing indirect confrontation between the two countries. Israel is believed to seek to prevent Iran from strengthening its military capabilities in the region and to limit Tehran's strategic influence. In response, Iran launched an operation called True Promise 3. The article explains that in Shiite Islamic theology, promise refers to God's commitment to protect believers. The numbering of the operation reflects how Tehran places military actions within a symbolic sequence resembling a ritual in which each attack is viewed as a step in a broader historical process. According to Inab Baladi, Iran launched missiles toward Israel and several Gulf areas where U.S. forces are stationed. Explosions were reported in Abu Dhabi, Manama, and Riyadh, while Qatar announced it had intercepted aerial objects targeting its territory. These developments indicate the risk of the conflict spreading across the entire Middle East region. The article emphasizes that alongside the military dimension, a battle of narratives is also taking place. The use of religious language and biblical imagery gives the confrontation ideological and identity-based overtones that can serve domestic political objectives. According to Enab Baladi's analysis, in Israel, emphasizing religious elements in the conflict may help strengthen political support amid internal tensions. Meanwhile, Iran also frames its response within a powerful symbolic discourse tied to the message of resistance. The article warns that the escalation of attacks and retaliations increases the risk of miscalculation and deeper involvement by regional and international powers. Inab Baladi argues that the current crisis goes beyond the strategic dimension and is entering a process that many analysts call the theologization of geopolitics, in which religion becomes an important factor in international relations. However, experts also warn against interpreting Middle Eastern crises purely from a religious perspective. According to Inab Baladi, in many cases, divisions such as that between Sunni and Shiite Islam are often exploited to serve traditional power competition, such as in the relationship between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Other conflicts in the region, such as those in Libya or tensions between Turkey and the UAE, also occur between forces sharing the same religion. Therefore, the article concludes that religion in current crises should be viewed as a combination of belief and political organization, rather than merely a matter of theology.